Welcome to the Overcommitted podcast, your weekly dose of real engineering conversations. I'm your host this week, Brittany, and I am joined by...
Hey, I'm Erika.
We met while working on a team at GitHub and quickly realized we were all obsessed with getting better at what we do. So we decided to start this podcast to share what we've learned. We'll be talking about everything from leveling up your technical skills to navigating your professional development, all with the goal of creating a community where engineers can learn and connect. Today on Overcommitted, we are joined by Lars Olson, a full-stack engineer at TAIT, the live event technology company behind the staging, automation, and show control systems for some of the biggest tours and spectacles in the world, from the Olympics to major arena tours. His work sits where software meets the physical, safety-critical side of live entertainment, where code controls machinery moving over and around live performers. First met Lars at Cascadia.js. We've met at the last two now, and every time I hear about his role, I get really excited to hear more. So, hence why we are now on the podcast. So welcome, Lars.
Thank you.
To kick us off, what is one thing you are currently building or obsessed with learning right now?
Yeah, so I had a couple things written down. Honestly, there's just so much going on at work and outside of work. At work right now, we're doing a full re-architecture of our software. So it's about a 10-year piece of software. We've decided to redo it at this point. So maybe we can talk about that a bit later.
Yeah.
Other than that, I have a personal project outside of work called My Hometown Recipes. I think I remember mentioning that to you potentially last year, but it allows you to either use AI to identify recipes from a specific part of the world or user-submitted recipes, but kind of hard to get people to use a site without people submitting a recipe yet. And then other than that, I am working on a Expo app for my sister because she's had a nice mobile idea for a couple of years. And then I just actually picked up a consulting website for a group of physicists. So wide range of side projects at the moment.
Yeah, you could say that you're quite committed, overcommitted even.
Overcommit. I am overcommitted at the moment.
Yeah, that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
That's great. Cool. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do for work and how did you end up in this space where you're writing code for live shows?
Yeah, so at TAIT, like you mentioned, we're one of the largest stage manufacturing producers in the world. We also do cruise ship entertainment, theaters, opera houses, anything like that. We have two pieces of software, one called Navigator, which it's our oldest piece of software. It's about 25 years old. That's generally what most of the industry uses at the moment. We also have IQ, which is what I work on. That's been developed over about the last 10 years, and it's essentially an easier version of Navigator. I've been with the company now about 4.5 years, and Navigator is still hard for me to use sometimes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's pretty intense piece of software because it's just adding features for 25 straight years. And so IQ is supposed to be this new solution, basically integrates the same with Navigator, the same safety code and everything, but you can train somebody on 2 weeks instead of 2 years.
That's awesome.
At least that's the general premise. And so, yeah, I develop the front end of that, and also generally we call it the back end of the front end. So all the APIs and everything that integrates back to Navigator. So, yeah.
Okay. So IQ sits in front of Navigator, essentially?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much just like a new front end layer, windowing and everything. We have a existing C++ app with a React front end, and then we're switching to a Rust back end, windowing with the React front end as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
We write it in Rust. That's everybody's dream.
That's kind of where everybody's going. Yeah, we had quite a Rust fanboy when I first joined the company, who's won me over the years.
So it's the operators who use the software, and it integrates with the systems that are put up.
Yeah. So either we'll manufacture the hardware ourselves, so it's like the drives that will be an axis going up and down, left and right, or a turntable spinning, or we integrate with pretty much every other solution in the market. And so Navigator will do the safety code integration with the hardware, and then we'll write the front end on that to integrate with Navigator. And then, like you said, it's operators who will either do a live move or pre-program a show to be at 10 seconds, move this up and down, or do time code with certain songs.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think it sounds like something that you probably can't get wrong super often.
Yeah.
It's probably pretty important to work well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel like that can be a little bit different from a lot of software out there where it's oh, it's got a bug, I'll go fix it.
Exactly. Oh, it's the website crashed, just refresh. But it's
Yeah. Yeah, not quite as much of a thing.
Mhm.
So when you tell other engineers what it is you work on, what is it that they usually assume about it, or they typically get wrong about it?
The first one I always love hearing is like, "Oh, I work for stage automation," like whatever. People are like, "Oh, I loved the lighting you guys did. I loved this concert." I'm like, "We do everything but lighting."
Yeah.
That's like the first thing people go to, and we're like, "Okay, everything else."
Mhm.
And that's like the stage automation that goes up and down. We do performer flying. We do stage like pyrotechnics. And then a lot of the ones as well, people assume are like, "Oh, I work on stage automation." They're like, "Oh, you write the shows." Like I went to Taylor Swift. That's very cool. You did the programming for the show. And I'm like, "Oh no, I work on the application, like the internal tools behind it."
Mhm.
And then somebody else at our company will actually do the programming.
Okay. Is it
Yeah.
pretty much entirely within your company that they do that, or is it like a tool that anybody can use
Over
across
the
the
last
industry? Or
few years, we've actually been kind of slowly building an internal team that does that. But over the last 25, 30 years, when Navigator was first created, it was mostly contractors. And I think it's hard to break in a Navigator. I mean, IQ, it's like generally you have to be involved with the industry already.
Mhm.
But for the most part, there are some contractors using it, but it's generally mostly an internal tool that will
Makes sense.
we'll send a few people out for each tour to operate it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I could see how people think like lighting first. That's like the first thing that comes to mind when I'm like designing a show. But there's so much I feel like that goes into it that you don't even realize is happening.
Mhm.
Like you said, like the stage automation and the stage is moving up and down. I feel like when it's done well, it's not really a thing. You're like, oh, look at that stage move up and
Yes,
down. It's just
exactly.
like part of the experience of the
It's
show.
it's completely transformed how I go to shows now. It's like the first thing I look for. It's like, "Oh, look at that really cool thing." And like generally, I think 60, 70% of the times it's actually us doing it. There's
Hmm.
very few shows now I go to where it's not a TAIT concert.
Interesting.
So now I'm
That's
always
cool.
looking for like something going wrong.
Oh no, bug reports.
Yeah. Because I mean, I can think of so many things that could go wrong, right? Like it's like the hardware could malfunction or there could be a software bug. Like we're talking
Hmm.
about like designing for failure scenarios. There could be like a really crappy network connection. Like I don't know, some of these stadiums or whatever, like maybe they've improved their Wi-Fi, but I know like I've been places where my Wi-Fi doesn't work or something like that. So like
Yeah, I
how do
mean,
you
we've
manage
had,
that? Like the
you
network
know,
connection and that kind of stuff.
yeah. So generally, like you said, that we've had network dropouts that have caused issues before. But generally, we'll set up our own like network within a stadium, and so we're not reliant on the stadium that we visit. Just generally as well, because every single stadium we go to, every single arena is completely different how they do technology, and so you can't really rely on the venues you're going to. But yeah, generally we'll set up our own network. Everything is generally completely isolated, so you don't want like somebody in the crowd trying to hack into your system mid show.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so we try to be entirely offline as possible, but a lot of cable runs and everything, so we really don't even have a much of an exposed Wi-Fi for it.
Okay, so there's a lot more that goes into it. I feel like that is this like is Tate usually like one of the first groups that shows up to set up for a show? I would because I imagine a lot of that stuff you'd have to build around that.
Yeah, so we're all the way actually from design of the show now as well. There's
Hmm.
another company we recently acquired that does what the show will even look like, and then they'll move to the next stage where we manufacture the show, and then it goes all the way to us doing the load in for it and the load out. And sometimes it's the entire show, stage, automation, like even helping set up the lighting, and then sometimes it's a combination of like somebody else did the stage, we just did the automation in the background. But we're generally always like the first ones in there helping get set up.
Was this the first place that you've been then where you've had like where things have to work like the first time they, they
Yeah,
that it runs? Is that a
yeah,
new for you or?
that's pretty much new for me. So like after I graduated college, I started out at Navient, which is a student loan company. So sorry if you guys have student loans. I was helping out rewriting the COBOL mainframe system to a modern stack, which was Kotlin and React. I was actually hired as a backend developer, and then quickly realized that I don't like backend development and transitioned to be a front-end developer. And so I kind of learned React there for a few times. I had my own side projects, and then Tate actually ended up just hitting me up on LinkedIn. And I was like, well, that's the coolest job ever. How could I not apply?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I ended up there.
That's awesome. Yeah, very different. I mean, still things need to be correct, I guess, when you're working with financial systems, but it's a
It it is correct, but it's like not a. It's just like it's a website. It can crash and everything, and it's fine, especially working on the front end and everything. But there's not some like this talk has mentioned. There's nobody performer flying, or there's nobody on a stage in front of me at the moment.
yeah, that makes sense. Has that changed? Does that change the way that you design or test things? Like, does that show up within the work that you're doing day to day? Then you can't really like redo a thing. So yeah, how does
Yeah,
that
I
work?
think we're pretty tedious about obviously writing unit tests, integration tests. Like we have a pretty end-to-end stack of everything being tested. We have a variety of like code review for multiple developers, then it makes it to like one round of QA, and then it makes it to a next round of like full end-to-end testing for QA. We have physical hardware in the office. So we have like physical things we can move up and down. And so it makes like, even though we try to work quick, obviously it's like 10 rounds of testing before something actually makes it to a customer. Just because it, like you've mentioned, it can't go wrong generally. And I've seen in the past where it has gone wrong. And we've been grilled pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah. You were mentioning before we were chatting that Tate's been around for a while now, right? It's 40
Mhm.
or 50 years. That's yeah. I feel like that's also not something that everybody who works in tech is like experienced with.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun one. So like Navigator, I keep mentioning, has been around for about 20, 25 years now. But before then, we were generally just a hardware company. We started out just manufacturing stages essentially, or different props for a stage or anything. I think our tagline is that we've been on all 7 continents and in space. So we did, I think it was a Metallica concert in Antarctica, and then when U2 did a concert way back in like 2010, maybe earlier than that, we sent some letters up to the space station to like record a video for them, and then they presented it during their concert.
That's cool.
Um, but then yeah, just over the time we've tried to integrate more and more, and we're becoming like a lot more of a technology first company. I mean, that's just how the world generally is, and like we're not just doing staging anymore. We're doing like theme park rides and like permanent installations just require mostly software. So
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Interesting. Theme park. Is that specifically like the traveling theme park rides
no,
or does
so
it matter?
like
Is there a difference between them?
generally a lot of it is like we'll do either like big props. So like
Mhm,
you're on a ride and you'll see a prop going up and down left or right next to you. So like
mhm.
sometimes it's not the actual show control, but it's the things moving around you, or like we'll do scenery building. I don't know if I'm allowed to actually mention the specific rides that we've done, but
Fair.
yeah,
That's
we'll do a
interesting.
lot of the like automation for like if you're actually on the ride, like controlling a big arm that actually has people on it. So that has many layers of like UI safety code written underneath it, like
Mhm.
manufacturing the hardware underneath that and everything. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that's really interesting. And there's this thing that's been happening recently in the tech industry. You might have heard of it. AI. It's been mentioned a few times. How is that like I know like the talk right now is always like, ah, you got to ship faster and move things faster, but like that doesn't necessarily work where you are. Like how is that working? What are your thoughts there on AI?
We're trying to find a good balance for that. I actually personally love AI. I was a
Mhm.
big AI hater like a year and a half ago, and then I actually used it, and I was like, okay. But no, our director for software engineering is like a huge proponent for it. Like we have Claude, we have Copilot, and everything at work, and we're allowed to use it. Generally, it's still going to be this incredibly strict like QA process. Still requires human developers reviewing the code. We still have actually Copilot reviewing our PRs now. But generally, I try to break it up between like what I'm going to use AI for is like I generally don't like to use it for if it's going to be something like a safety system. If it's actually interacting and it's something that can trigger an emergency stop on a device, it's something I'd like to be a little more handcrafted for. But generally, it's been great. I actually have a Claude code thing going right now on the side at work.
Nice.
It's yeah, it's great. So I love doing it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we can work on that's just like simple displaying of information that
Mhm.
is perfect for AI.
Yeah. Yeah, no, same. I almost always have something running now, it seems like, in the background, just operating. It's a
Mhm.
very, very weird world. And it sounds like you have a lot of controls already built in for safety anyway. So, really, that might be one of the most ideal areas to be experimenting with AI coding, I would think, because like you have a lot of stops in place, it sounds like, to review and make sure everything is good.
Yeah, and thankfully for like the hardware, we have like a physical piece of hardware that goes up and down. But then on top of that, you have like safety PLC code and controllers that does its own level of safety. Then you have Navigator doing safety code, and then you have us doing our own safety code for the UI.
Mhm,
And it really is like that required full stack because you're actually moving people, you're doing things in front of a crowd. Like
mhm.
there's certain cases though where I've seen like really early on when I joined the company about 5 years ago, we had some persistent web bug that kept crashing a window that would actually show you where you're like, let's say you're in the middle of the show and it says, I'm at position 10, I'm going to position 20 next, 20 feet. the window would crash every time you'd start up the software. Even if we had like a specific error boundary, you'd say refresh, it would crash again. So it's like, that's just not a well-designed piece of software, because it's like, how do you get out of that? The only way is booting up our old piece of software, Navigator, that you may not know how to use if you're trained on 2 weeks of IT. Or you could press the e-stop button and stop the concert because it's safe, but then your show can't proceed. So
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You can't.
how did you respond? Like what was the learning like from that, and like how was it how was that handled?
yeah, so like when I first joined the company, it was strictly JavaScript, no TypeScript on the app. So we had just a lot of interface bugs of just like using things that weren't null checked, or using incorrect, like we used manipulation on a number and it's actually a string. And a lot of like fixing small bugs just like that, thankfully, was just conversion to TypeScript, which most of our app is now. And then a lot of it was just like really bogging down, and like we created a much higher QA stack. So like all this QA I keep talking about wasn't fully in place 5 years ago. So redeveloping how we did QA, redeveloping how we did unit testing, integration testing, like that was kind of how we solved it.
That's cool. I think that that's work that, at least within my career, maybe it's just places that I've worked, but I feel like it's always a thing you really want to do, but
Mhm.
don't often get the time set aside to do it because everybody's always like, no, new features. So
Mhm.
that's cool that you've actually gotten to see how that is implemented over time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have these crashes as well that occur, and it's like, okay, it's crashing, and we have another show tomorrow. Like this is an opera house, for example. So it's like the bug needs to be fixed today, and we're going to ship it tonight, and it needs to be used by people tomorrow. So it's like we need to work slow for safety, but we also have these incredibly tight deadlines. So that really makes us need to be diligent when we're actually developing it the first time, or we're going to run into these scenarios where it's like, okay, well, you might need to work a little bit overnight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that it is informative though, like of this idea of a lot of small bugs cropping up and creating these larger things. So that's a good lesson to learn. Sometimes it's not one big bang, it's a lot of little things that add up.
mhm.
Yeah. I feel like you probably see a lot of really weird failures too that like somebody who just works specifically in web development wouldn't actually anticipate. Like, oh, somebody, spilled beer or something on like
Yeah.
the stage or something like that. Is there anything weird that you also have to be prepared for that you wouldn't need to otherwise?
Yeah, this is one I've actually run into in the past is, let's say a piece of hardware goes bad. I mean, it's just like a
Mm,
drive suddenly shorts out or something. It can still act like it's going correct. It can perfectly spit out data, but it's
mhm.
just going to start spitting out bad numbers.
Yeah.
And so they're like, let's move to position like feet 20, and it's like, okay, I'll go to 20, and it's like 400 just
Oh
because the
no.
hardware's gone wrong. And so like, how do you code around that? I mean, I don't even know if I have a great answer about that. Like the safety code will prevent the device from going past its specific measurement, but you do also have to catch this in the UI being like, this is incorrect. It's displaying wrong information.
Mhm.
We do get statuses back from devices. So like maybe it's a lot of like conditional rendering. Like maybe we don't render the current position if we could see the device is in a bad state.
Mm,
So you're not confusing the user.
yeah. Dealing with non-deterministic outputs before it was cool.
Mhm.
That's funny. Cool. Well, I want to talk a little bit about like what people that are working not on safety critical work can like steal from some of your practices because it sounds like there's a lot that you've learned in this role. So, one of the things, is there anything that you think like somebody on like a very conventional web development track might be able to like learn about working on live events or working on hardware or anything like that with physical stakes?
Yeah, I think the biggest one I'm always going to mention is error boundaries have become like my best friend. Generally, you're just going to try to at least narrow it down to the smallest piece of your software that can crash. If that's an individual widget, if that's an individual certain section of the page, I've dealt with a lot of that before. Like in the past, if our web crashed, every single web page would crash. Then we started isolating it down to a single web page, then a single section of the web page, and we've just kind of gotten more granular as time goes on, which has been great because I've started taking that into my own personal projects now, like this recipe app that I mentioned. I had a lot of bugs with the specific map section. I've tried to error boundary like certain parts of my own app now where it's just like, okay, this can crash, but it's fine. We can still recover the rest of the application. We're not like giving a bad user experience to other people.
Interesting. Can you describe what an error boundary is? So you're basically like preventing an error from going outside of a
Yeah, you're
boundary.
essentially just wrapping other components, being like, okay, if it's going to catch a crash, that anything that occurs underneath this,
Mm.
You can provide some type of fallback component to render, hey, this thing crashed. Please press refresh to refresh just this individual section. You can
Mm.
even provide like a suspense fallback to show a spinner as it's trying to reload and everything like that. So
That makes sense. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I was gonna say that's the first thing that kind of like came to mind when you were talking before about your work and, like the layers of errors. Like, I guess this is slightly different than preventing errors from spreading, but with your example before of the like the arm moving 400 instead of 200 feet because something went wrong, like there's
Mhm.
multiple places to handle that too, where it's like, well, you mentioned like a safety check to say like, no, don't actually move this 400 feet. Like you're
Yeah.
only allowed to move wherever. And then also on the like controller side to say like, hey, this is like this event fired. So like don't trust this from now on.
Yep.
So you kind of have like two different information sources to correctly handle the situation.
Yeah. It's all interesting problems because like coming from a maybe less like I came from a traditional web sense, but it was also still like internal tools. I've never actually like worked on a public website at least full time. But then going to this company where it's like it needs to be right the first time as much as you can really changes my perspective about not just working here, but I think any place I work in the future is like how safety critical you need to be, even if it's just a basic website, even if it's just to provide a good user experience to someone.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's something that we talked a lot about, especially at GitHub with so many like moving pieces and parts. Like you never want to be the one app that takes down the rest of the site.
Yes.
Always isolate things and make sure like that's very good
Mhm.
practice to learn.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
for sure. Are there any habits or any like instincts that you think that you've picked up while doing this work that you're gonna, for sure take on to future roles? And it's okay if not. I mean,
I don't really actually have anything good on that one. Good habits. I think it's all coming back to like the same stuff I keep saying. It's just like I think what I've talked about with my managers here is like trying to go more the architectural route.
mhm,
And so with AI, I've done a lot more like spec driven development.
mhm,
And so it's really like write an entire spec of the feature that required. We're not just like asking Cloud Code to develop something for us, but really thinking about every little single piece. We start like diagramming and everything, provide the diagrams to Claude. Yeah, we've just gotten it's just a lot more of like minute details now
mhm.
than I was like 4.5 years ago on literally every single piece of the stack.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying too, like just getting a vibe of like how safety critical things actually are. Are there other things now where like, all right, this is a thing that's not going to impact humans or something? You don't have to have
Yeah.
as rigorous of a scope for it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always try to like separate it between like visualization of data versus something that can actually interact. So like one window we have in our software is called the device window because everything is considered a device and essentially just shows every single device in your app. All that's really used to do is just like show the current position of things, show the status and everything. And so like that's less mission critical because all it's doing is just displaying information to you. It is
Mhm.
important. But then like we have another page that's incredibly important that's actually showing what part of the show you're running, what's going to come up next, what like every single piece underneath that. And so we have to be a lot more diligent on those types of pages where you can actually load things on what's going to run for a show. This is how you actually, we have things called channels. So like you load something to one channel and this is where it's running the show, but suddenly let's say that channel crashes, or you could pause it. You can load something to another channel, let's say a joystick, and you can move it really quickly manually just because we got into this weird situation where maybe the thing ran into the ground because we moved too far.
Oh no. Hmm.
So stuff like that. There's just like recovery methods and like certain windows where we really need to be careful. And then some are just like, oh, this is a visualization window. We can be a little bit less diligent.
Yeah. Makes sense. Interesting. And then if there was anybody who wanted to build their career around working in, either in live events or, anything else that I guess you're interacting with a lot of things that your company also manufactures. What do you
Mhm.
recommend they like learn or do to get into that?
It's funny. So most of the company is actually like theater kids. I will say
Yes.
50 or 60% of the people in our company, I swear, are probably theater kids. I
Mm.
don't come from a theater background. And so most of the people in manufacturing, designing, we actually have like seamstress, seamstress, you just can't say that word.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, yeah. But doing sewing, we have painters, we have like crafters. There's so many different types of jobs that we have at our headquarters. We also do like inflatables for music festivals now.
Mhm. Hmm.
And so it's even for software, it's just like mostly a passion more than anything. You can always learn what you're gonna do. Um, but I think just like having a passion for the work, because I have a little bit of a music background, really made me like really want to work here. And including many of the theater kids that work here is like, oh, TAIT's the place to go for if you want to do live entertainment.
Mm. Yeah,
Um,
that's cool.
and like I was hired as essentially a mid-level engineer, but we've hired junior level engineers before and interns and everything. And a lot of it is just like be passionate about the work you're doing. We can teach you how to do an error boundary. We can teach you about safety code.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, with that, at the end of each one of our shows, we always do a fun segment. And this one's extra fun because you work on something really cool. So we planned the Dream Show Lightning Round. So it's going to be a rapid fire, no wrong answers, gut reaction to a couple of different prompts. Just what would your dream show be to plan, essentially? I guess it's not specifically exactly what you're working on day to day, but it seems like you're very involved in music and love music. So this is, yeah.
You said which one I would plan.
Yeah, which one you would want to be a part of, which one you'd want to like
Yeah.
prepare for or go to even,
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
feels right in the moment.
So I'm a big fan of electronic music generally.
Mhm.
And one artist that I've always loved is Daft Punk.
Oh
They've
yeah.
yeah, they've split up at this point. They don't do any live performing anymore. So like I really feel like I missed out on that like era of EDM.
Mhm.
And now like I've always watched live recordings of their shows. So that'd be awesome to either be a part of or just make it to one.
Yeah, they have incredibly cool shows too. I feel like all of their videos are really neat. Uh,
Mhm.
So if you had a blank check and you don't have to worry about the laws of physics for one specific effect at a show, what would you build?
Okay. I actually have recently thought about this problem. One thing we always run to is in like stage production and anything, you always have to manufacture around like cable management. Everything has to move around cables. We get cables snagged on things. So like having some type of like wireless power would enable you to build like very cool stages. Just being like, we're going to move that thing up there. Nothing has to be attached to it. It can just go up and down or left and right or spin around without needing to like build in all this crazy extra things to get cables up to it.
Yeah, I could see that being really problematic.
There's
Yeah.
nothing like battery operated that can do that?
I mean, we can certainly do battery operated, but like the amount of weight on batteries you'd have to like put on this floating thing, and like maybe they wouldn't last 3 hours for a show
Okay.
for the weight of that many batteries.
Yeah. Okay.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's an interesting constraint. What do you think is the most fun engineering problem from the following? A massive stadium tour, an intimate theater residency, a permanent theme park installation, or a one night spectacle?
Hmm. I think a theme park installation would probably be the most interesting because it's the one used by the most people over time.
Mhm.
And so like a big, I mean, massive stadium tour. Actually, when you think of like Taylor Swift or anything, I think her thing went on for like 6 months and each thing was 50 to 100,000 people. So it's probably millions of people. But then let's say you build something at Disney World or Universal, it's like that's millions of people every single year for
Mhm.
20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And you can get some really interesting problems to solve for that because it's like we're not just a one-off ride, or it's not just a stage that needs to last one night, but it's something that needs to be maintained for 20 years.
Mhm. Yeah. Plus, then you can go on the ride and tell all your friends, like, I worked on that. Like,
Exactly.
I did that. That was cool. Which genre do you think makes for the best show overall? Like, what do you think ends up, like, what music genre do you think is the coolest to plan for?
Personally, I'm going to say EDM, but
Makes sense.
actually, it's probably pop music. I will think it's actually more of like the artist than the genre itself, though.
Mhm.
So like it really depends on how much pride and like how much passion they're putting into the design themselves. Some artists are just like, build me a stage, build some lighting, it's whatever. But then some people are some artists I think are involved from the very first with helping design out what they want their concert to look like.
Mhm.
Taylor Swift, I think, was involved from the very beginning. Uh, I think she had 100, maybe 200 semi trucks touring on her concert, and they would actually build one stage at one city and start building the next stage at the next city. Uh,
Oh, interesting.
yeah, and so it can get pretty intense what they're doing.
All right, and then I guess this will be the last one here. What do you think is the most underrated part of a live show that most audience members would never notice, but you notice now every time?
Now that I've been to a ton of shows now related to work, so like work will give us free tickets occasionally to a show, which is like the
Oh,
greatest
nice.
perk alive.
Yeah.
And so like I've been backstage to a lot of events before they happen, and then I've been able to like see a loadout at the end of the event, but it's generally the crew actually. So like TAIT will bring in 5 to 20 people in a show, but also it's generally each city we go to, we work with stage crew who work in that city, and you'll have 200 people that put up a giant concert in one day, less than a day, and then they tear it down in like 2 hours.
Mhm.
And so it's like you never would know if you walk in the morning and you walk in at night, there was never a concert there to begin with. And yet it's like this huge live entertainment that everybody loves, and then it's gone to the next
Mhm.
city.
Gotcha. Yeah, that seems like a very useful thing, and yeah, it's something that you would probably never notice, but that's the
Yeah,
point,
like
I guess.
you never see the crew. Like they're just hiding
Mhm.
behind. They're usually having dinner while the show's going on, or they go out and go sleep back at the hotel room. Because
Yeah.
most of the time these loadout go from like the show ends at say midnight, loadouts by about 3 a.m., and then
Oof.
they're hopping on the bus off to the next city.
Yeah. That's a that's a brutal schedule.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this has been great. Is there anything else that you wanted to say or, I don't know, put out
No,
there
I think
about it?
generally you covered it. I mean, it's been awesome to speak about this. I've always wanted to get kind of out there more with like public speaking and talking about more about my work. Like every time I've talked to you or more people at the conference, they're like, "Well, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard of," especially like reacting live entertainment.
Yeah.
And so like trying to speak more at conferences, more at podcasts and everything, which is great. So yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Yeah, this was great. I'm so glad you were able to make it. Yeah, and it was great to hear more about what you do. Where can folks find you online if they want to track down Lars?
Yes. So Lars is actually my middle name. So you can find me at Eric Lars Olson on pretty much every social media. It's ERIK. And so LinkedIn is Eric Lars Olson, Instagram, GitHub. I think Blue Sky is eriklars.bluesky.
Nice.
But generally, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I've tried to grab that handle for every social media except for I think somebody beat me out in Gmail.
Ah, darn.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, yeah, we'll include links to all of those as well in the show notes. Cool.
perfect.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Overcommitted. If you like what you hear, please do follow, subscribe, or do whatever it is you like to do on the podcast app of your choice. Check us out on Blue Sky and share with your friends. Until next week.